Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Triangulation, episode 255, recorded June 1st for airing Monday, June 27th, 2016. Kevin Kelly. Triangulation is brought to you by Epson's new Eco Tank printers. With Epson's line of Super Tank all-in-one printers, you can print thousands of documents without running out of ink. Epson Eco Tank is loaded and ready to print when you are. Visit epson.com/ecotank to find out more. And by Corning. Corning's incredibly durable Thunderbolt and USB 3.0 optical cables are longer, thinner, lighter, and stronger. Go to corning.com/twit to save up to $130 on their superior Thunderbolt optical cables.
It's time for Triangulation, the show where we talk to some of the most interesting, smartest, bestest people in technology and learn a few things, and you get to participate through the chat room. This one's a pre-recorded show. We did this the 1st of June because I really wanted to get one of the great people of our business on to talk about his new book. Kevin Kelly is here, founding editor at Wired magazine. You may remember him going way back. I remember him going way back to the Whole Earth catalog and the Whole Earth electronic link, The Well. And Kevin specializes in, was it you or Stephen Levy? Slow journalism. One of you coined that. I love it. Yeah. Actually taking time to write things instead of blogging 5 times a day.
Exactly.
Great to have you, Kevin. Wonderful.
It's such a pleasure to be here.
We took a tour already, and I'm sorry you missed it, folks, of Kevin's amazing office. Behind him, what looks like a beautiful modernist piece of graffiti art was actually created by the Army Corps of Engineers. That's the Mississippi Valley.
Yeah, that's the archaic river beds as it moves across the landscape over millions of years. The white is the current river.
And that's actually how it looks. It's not like you painted it.
No, this is Army engineer maps that I found on the internets and printed out. They're high details, and they're actually things done with your tax dollars.
You know, going back to the Whole Earth catalog, it really was kind of about cool tools and finding stuff and bringing it to people and saying, look. And, you know, you are at a small group of people. We got to include Stuart Brand and, of course, Mark Frauenfelder, and who have this great joy in the world and see it as we don't, and say, look, and you and look at this map, and you shake us and say, look, and we wake up as sleepers and we go, oh, that's neat. So thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, it's a compulsion.
I am so glad that you have found your calling. Yeah. And you still do cool tools.
Still do cool tools.
And we were talking about Wink Books, which you do with Mark.
Yes. Every couple of days we recommend a book that belongs on paper. Highly recommended book that is worth buying on paper because so many books are ebooks these days. But if you like paper, this is where to go.
It's in a way, I feel life is too short to enjoy the works of Kevin Kelly. I don't know how you find time, but I'm so glad you do. The new book, which is just as we're recording this, about to come out in about a week. So I have an uncorrected proof, which usually means it's the same as the book, but there may be a typo, or I don't know.
There's a couple typos that were fixed.
Typos. Please review number here. This was deleted. Stuff like that is in the marginalia. It's called The Inevitable, and I love that. And you're going to talk about the next 20 years and I think a dozen innovations or technological forces that will shape those next couple of decades.
Right, exactly. And that's primarily about digital technology and the ways in which it's going to roll out and affect our lives.
Yeah.
A lot of the things we've heard about, my premise is that much of what's coming we don't have much choice about is going to be coming anyway, no matter what we do. But we have a lot of choice in how we do it.
Unintentionally, it started to become a theme of this show because we talk to a lot of people who are talking about the coming future and getting a lot of perspectives on it. I think, this is a technology network, so we like to talk about the cool technologies around us. And I'm always a little nervous about predictions because, that's one of the things you learn, and I know covering this field for so long, is it's unpredictable. And yet, I think you're right. I think we can kind of see the outline of the future through the fog ahead of us.
Right. So I would say, in a certain sense, that the internet, say, was inevitable, but Twitter was not.
Exactly.
Telephones were inevitable. Any planet you go on where they invented electricity, they're going to eventually invent telephones, but the iPhone was not inevitable. So the larger megatrends are very clear, in part because they've already started, but the specifics, the particulars, are completely unpredictable, and it's a fool's game to even try and predict those.
Right. So we're not going to worry about that, but we will talk about the kind of outline, the shapes.
Exactly. Those large genres, the big things, which have decades of momentum. So they've already been operating, and they will continue to go and increase in the next 20, 30 years. Those are the things I'm talking about. So, it's like, imagine if 40 years ago, somebody from the future came and they said, hey, here's where this is going. For the next 40 years, every year, computers would get twice as fast, half as cheap, twice as small for the next 40 years.
Right.
They didn't need to tell you anything about IBM or Apple. All you need to know is that megatrend was going to be true reliably. Imagine what you could do. I mean, first of all, if you wanted to be wealthy, you could be as wealthy as you wanted to just on that information. But you could also prepare our schools. You could prepare your own career. You could prepare politics to accept the fact that this is going to happen. And that's sort of what we're talking about now.
That's what I used the word megatrends. Was it Alvin Toffler?
No, that was John Naisbitt.
Naisbitt, that's right.
Who had a book called Megatrends. Alvin Toffler's idea, his key thing was future shock.
Future shock, yeah.
Which meant that there was this ongoing state of anxiety that we'd have about the future.
Which is not far off. I think that's proven true. Have Naisbitt's megatrends? You before you embarked upon this journey, did you look back to see what others said 20 years and 30 years ago?
Actually, his megatrends were fairly good. I think one of them was this high-tech, high-touch.
Yep.
This idea that while the more and more that we made technology and this sort of intangible, that we'd also have this movement towards the touch, the kind of like what we now would think of as sort of the authentic, the expensive artisanal breads and things like that. So I think he was actually pretty good on most of his megatrends.
That was 1982. So, so it's kind of the same distance. I mean, I suppose someday, 30 years from now, somebody will look back at the inevitable and see,
they'll say, how did I do?
How inevitable was it? When we designed this studio, it was at Naisbitt's high-tech, high-touch that I kept in mind. And in fact, I've always done that when we've done our shows. We try to take human touches and humanize what would, a lot of times technology, it's brushed metal and the future and cyber bots and Borgs. Yep. And I wanted to make it, we have an old radio here. I wanted to really make it tactile and real and physical and less scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way to go. And I think everyone's wrong about imagining the future as being this kind of Star Trek with all these clean, sterile lines, when in fact it's much closer to the kind of Star Wars world where you have the new layered on top of the old, and there's kind of the worn future,
or Blade Runner. Blade Runner, maybe.
Or Blade Runner.
Why we love Blade Runner so much. It was a gritty kind of dark future, a noir future.
But I talk about high technology, new technology, but I want to be very clear that most of the technology in the future is going to be old stuff. If you look around your room, around my room, it's mostly old technology, concrete, wood, pipes, electrical stuff that's been around. That's the majority of the stuff. And in the future, that's going to be exactly the same thing. We'll still have TCP in 1,000 years from now.
Yeah, we will.
Yes.
You sure?
It's like it's like ATP cycles in cells. You know that
It's
they
just
haven't
there.
changed in millions of years.
TCP/IP is the new ATP.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I was just looking at a Git project called Arc, and the idea of it is to compress and encrypt your data in such a way that will be recoverable in 10, 20, 100 years. And this is a real challenge if you think about it. Because if you had a zip disk today, good luck trying to find what's on that off of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the same time as we are building on the midden of the past, there's a lot of trash in there that future archaeologists won't be able to decipher.
I'm affiliated with the Long Now Foundation.
I was going to ask you,
trying to promote long-term thinking.
I love the long now and the clock of the long now.
Yes, the clock, the 10,000-year clock that's ticking inside this mountain for 10,000 years, and every day it generates a new melody that's unique for that day. And if nobody's around to hear it, it's gone forever. So for 10,000 years, it's a different melody every day. And that clock is being built right now, 500 feet tall, inside this hole, inside this mountain in West Texas. And
how's that coming along, by the way?
It's coming. It's coming along. They're assembling it right now. And the purpose of the clock is to provoke people to think about what could we do that might take more than one generation to do? What could we do that would involve a long-term thinking? So if you have a clock to measure in thousands of years, what would be a good 1,000-year project?
Danny Hillis designed this, and
Yes.
I know you were involved, and Stuart. And what a great idea.
But one of the first things that we actually wrestled with was this idea of transmitting information or time over time. So like all this digital stuff, it's like, it goes, as you say, obsolete. There's no more floppy disks. There's no more Commodore 80s to play. And so how can we move information forward so that in 1,000 years you can read the software that we have now? And that's a problem that we haven't solved. Although we did make a nickel disk, to experiment with that and preserving on a disk. And we took the most widely translated text on Earth, which happened to be First Genesis 3 in 1,000 different translations, and put it on a little disk, and it's on a probe that went and landed on that comet.
Wow.
Last year. So
it's a Rosetta Stone for future.
Right. There's a backup of all the languages on Earth.
Wow.
Orbiting on a comet.
Now that's a Rosetta Stone. That would be, what a find.
And that's what it's called. It's called the Rosetta Project.
What a great idea. And we haven't even talked about the book yet. Kevin Kelly is my guest. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back, and we will talk about the inevitable, understanding the 12 technological forces that are going to shape our future with the wonderful Kevin Kelly. And we'll also talk about his project to catalog all species on Earth. Where do you find time for this stuff? In just a moment. But first,
let's talk about, speaking of innovation, speaking about changing technology, let's talk about the Epson EcoTank printers. Amazing. Epson has done something, I think, unprecedented, which is, increasingly rare in technology, which is to do something good for customers. What? How insane is that? You'll never make money doing that. See, the idea is these new EcoTank printers, they're cartridge-free printing. They don't come with inkjet cartridges. They come with the ink in the box, 50 cartridges worth, enough for usually about 2 years of printing in the box. Take a look at the new EcoTank ET4550 as an example. It's a wireless all-in-one printer. Doesn't use ink cartridges. It features an innovative refillable ink tank. And, they deserve this. They got the Innovation Awards honor at CES 2016 this year. Because I think everybody remembers what it's like when you're in the middle of a big print job and you run out of ink. And by the way, when it's time, after a couple of years, after 10,000, 20,000 pages, depending on the printer, to get new ink, they come in bottles that cost 80% less. You fill up the tank and you're good to go for another 2 years. The EcoTank ET4550 is the one we have at home. So it's a precision core printer, which is Epson's top-of-the-line inkjet technology, 40 million drops of ink a second. It does a really crisp black and white text, vivid colors, two-sided printing if you want. I use that all the time to save money on paper, too. And just to save trees. It's really great. It has a scanner. It has a, you can use that for faxing, and some of the models have fax machines built in. Color printing. What else? Just depending. Well, actually, go to epson.com/ecotank. You can see all the models. But the 4550 is the one we use. That comes with 11,000 black pages or 8,500 color pages worth of ink in the box. It's equivalent to about 50 ink sets and 2 years of printing. Now, one of the things I think that keeps other companies from doing this is that means the printer up front is going to cost a little bit more because you're buying the printer and the ink. But in the long run, your savings is huge. And Epson, I remember Epson was telling me they launched this in Brazil because they wanted to see, is this going to scare people off? And they couldn't keep them in stock. And they said, we were really gratified that the consumers were able to make that rational economic understanding of, yeah, the ink is in the box, so you don't have to buy any more ink for 2 years. So it makes sense to pay a little bit more up front to save a lot more over that period of time. 2016 Small Business Windows Printer of the Year. Another award they won. It's really great. I'll give them my seal of approval. We're really happy with it. Epson has a lot of ways to use this. Of course, it works wirelessly with my phones, with my tablets. It works with all the Google Cloud Print and all the online printing technologies. 30-page auto document feeder that really works, by the way. I use this all the time to scan in contracts, documents. The Creative Print app that they just came out with is a free app. Works with your Epson printer, makes it easy to print Instagram or Facebook photos right from the app. You can download it and create personalized photo collages, custom greeting cards, stationery, coloring book templates. This is huge right now. Adult coloring books or kids coloring books. You can also print photos directly onto CDs or DVDs. Make those beautiful labels. Be creative on the go. Print from your mobile device to a variety of compatible Epson all-in-one printers, all within your wireless network, all with this Creative Print app. Really a nice app. Just one more way Epson really does put the customer first. Go to epson.com/ecotank and transform the way your home, your office, your work group prints for the best combination of ease and value. Turn to the new Epson EcoTank printers, epson.com/ecotank. We thank Epson so much for their support of Triangulation. Epson, exceed your vision. Speaking of vision, let's get back to Kevin Kelly, a great interview.
Our guest today, Kevin Kelly, he's the founder of Wired Magazine. He's the author of What Technology Wants. That's the last time we talked to you, I think. And his new book is The Inevitable, 12 Technological Forces that are going to shape our future. How do you think about these forces? Do you squint and kind of try to imagine? What was the process you went through to even figure out what these forces are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that technologies have biases. Mm-hmm. They can't do everything, and they're biased. It's like grain on a wood. They tend to run in one direction. And a great example for me is the internet is the world's largest copy machine. And anything that can be copied, if it touches the internet, will be copied indiscriminately. So it's copying is what it wants to do. And you can't stop the copying. And the music industry tried for 20 years to pretend that it didn't copy, to try to prevent the copying, to work against the copying. And they eventually came around to understand that you can't stop things from being copied. So what I want, but it was obvious to a lot of us from the very beginning that that's what it wanted to do, because what I tend to do is to look at how the street uses this technology, or how people use it, not how they were supposed to use it, how they actually use it. And I would say that it's trying to listen to the technology to see what its bias is. And the bias of the internet was it wants to copy. By the way, the internet wants to track. It's the world's largest tracking machine. And if it can be tracked and touches the internet, it will be tracked. And that's one of the new trends that I'm talking about, is the fact that we are headed towards more and more tracking. And we can try to outlaw it. We can try to stop it. We can try to prevent it, but it's going to track. And so our choices are not stopping the tracking, but civilizing or domesticating the tracking. So that's the kinds of things that I do, is to look at how the technology is biased based on its fundamental principles, and how is it being used on the street? How do people actually use it versus how they're supposed to use it? And out of that, I think, comes these senses of where the technology is moving on its own.
It's almost a Zen koan, because one at first says, well, it's humans and we're shaping it. But really, we're riding the horse in the direction it's going. It's we're both riders and carried by it.
Exactly. We're both the creators of this technology and the users. We're both the parents and the child. We're both the masters of it and the slave to it at the same time. And that dual face, that dual relationship, is going to be present with us forever into the future. We're always going to wrestle with those two aspects of it, that we are both creating it and being created by it.
So would you say it's futile to try to shape it or change?
No. So again, going back to the internet, which I believe was inevitable, but what was not inevitable about the internet was whether it was commercial or non-commercial, whether it was international or global, whether it was open or closed. And those, we have huge decisions and huge influence, and they matter tremendously to us. So while we're going to have an internet either way, what's not certain, and what we do have a lot of control over, is what kind of internet we have. In the same way that there's a developmental sequence in your own life of, embryo, fetus, infant, teenager, and you didn't have any choice on whether you became a teenager, but you had a lot of choice in what kind of teenager you. Perfect. So I think that's where we are. Is that no, we don't have a lot of choice about the large forms of what's coming, the internet, superorganism, telephones, but we have a lot of choice about what they look like, how they work, what the politics around them are.
And the sooner you start or become aware of your choices, the better you'll be able to make those choices.
Exactly. As I said to the thought experiment earlier, if you accepted the fact that computers would be headed on this kind of Moore's law very early on, and you actually structured our educational system and the legal system to account for that 40 years ago, be far ahead. So the idea is that we want to be able to embrace these technologies in order to maximize their benefits and minimize their harm, rather than try to prohibit them, because I think it's only by engaging with technologies that we're able to steer them. I think if we try to push them off or stop them, prohibit them, we don't have as much power to actually steer them as we do when we engage them.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the people we talk to are this, I guess, what we call Luddites, where people, Ned Ludd, fictional or not, is the 18th century figure who destroyed the looms. He was a weaver, and he didn't want the automated looms to take over his job. Of course, there was nothing he could do to stop it. And I think there are modern Luddites who say, "Oh no, we got to stop this privacy invasion." Maybe the EU would be an example.
Or we have to stop Uber.
Or we got to stop Uber. Everybody,
It's like,
perfect.
You cannot.
I'm a cab driver. I don't want Uber. Right. Doesn't matter.
Outlawing Uber that's like trying to outlaw copying with the music studios. It's just you're going to lose.
What would be the smart way if you are being put out of work or you're being disintermediated by new technologies to handle them? Instead of fighting tooth and nail to keep the status quo, what would be the right way to handle it?
So I
better way.
Yeah, I think a better way is, there's a lot of what taxi cab companies do that. A lot of what Uber does a taxi cab company could do. So there's the taxi cab companies could embrace this Uberization. They could have their allow their cabbies to drive an Uber. They could cooperate with them because there's, in a certain sense, you want to have some of the functions that cabs do. The ideal world is you have cabs and Uber. And so there are things that you can integrate the two systems much better than they are right now.
Way back when, you wrote 250,000 words about how technology impacts culture. This was your first book, right? Out of
Right.
Control, The New Biology of Machines, Social Systems, and the Economic World. Maybe not the best title. Something sexy nowadays might.
It was a terrible title. It's the one regret I have in life. It's just absolutely wrong title.
You can read it free on the web still,
and-
but that's now almost 30 years old.
Yeah. In fact, it was one of the very first in-print publications to be put on the web.
Wow. But what I love about it, and I have read not all of it, many bits of it, what I love about it is the idea that technology, what's happening now, impacts culture. And our culture is a reflection of our tools as much as our tools are a reflection of our culture.
Right, exactly. And they're becoming, and the best way, the other message of that first book was that a better way to think about these technological systems that we're making is to think of them as in biological terms rather than like machines, that they have agendas and biases, and like, for instance, if you're to try to deal with a problem on the internet, like spam or malware, you want to take an immunological position rather than kind of a mechanical one, which is like, all bad, keep out. No, you actually have to accept a certain level of infection as an acceptable level, and you work with other systems to kind of take a whole systems approach to this. And that idea, I think, is a much superior attack on trying to understand how to handle our technology rather than thinking of this as a machine or mechanical where you just don't like that, turn that off. No, that doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
No.
So our tools are not merely an appendage, but they're a creation. They're an extension of us. They're organically growing out of us, and technology is one of those.
Right, and that was McLuhan's observations that the wheel is an extended foot. So now the big thing that I'm most excited by, that a lot of what I talk about in this new book, The Inevitable, is AI. The fact that we have extended our minds, the most crucial, the thing that we most identify with, and that extension into AI is what's happening right now. And I really think that the ramifications of this are on the order of anything that we've made before, that really will, in the long term, affect, disrupt, alter, enhance, amplify, whatever you can think of.
Yeah,
it's going to affect that.
Should point out that Keanu Reeves made all the cast members and crew of The Matrix read Out of Control.
That's right.
Before they could even see the script.
The theory was it would help them understand this crazy movie. I'm not really sure it could, but
it feels like psychedelics were involved. I'm not going to make any judgment here, but I just it feels like that might be the case.
Out of Control plus psychedelics. There's your.
There is The Matrix. So 12 trends. And let me just read them, and then we can go through them a little bit. I don't know if we'll get through all 12, but becoming. You're gonna need to explain all of these. Cognifying.
They're all verbs, or actually they're all gerunds, which is constant motion, constant. Yeah.
Good use of the gerundative, as my Latin teacher would have said. Flowing, screening, accessing, sharing is the only one I recognize so far. Filtering, remixing, interacting, tracking, we talked about that, questioning, and beginning. Let's start with becoming. I like it that you end with beginning, which is, by the way, a great way to end it. Yeah, great way to end the book. So becoming, what is becoming?
Becoming is this idea that everything is in transition, everything is being remade, everything is mutable, and that basically all of us have to take the attitude of being perpetual newbies. Okay, so it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how many computer languages you have already learned. You're going to have to learn a new one. And we have also a sense of kind of unlearning to learn things. But you think, I've got it. I know how to use my smartphone. I know how to use this. I'm set. But no, you're not set, because tomorrow, the next day, there's going to be something new, VR, whatever it is, which will require another level of techno literacy, another learning, another sense of being lost and not knowing what's going on. And that is the permanent state of all the technology in ourselves, which is that we have to be kind of lifelong learners. We have to constantly be in that state of always being the newbie.
Become like a little child if you wish to enter the kingdom of heaven. That's an old
Amen.
message. Amen, brother.
Amen, brother.
But I mean, seriously, that's something that predates technology. I guess nothing predates technology. The story of man is a story of technology.
That's amen, bro.
Again, another amen. Hallelujah. But I think that's a deep message. Really, is to retain your childlike wonder and joy.
But it's more than just being wondered. You actually have to work at this. This is, I mean,
oh crap!
Can't learn calculus by hanging around.
Yeah, that's true.
It took you 4 or 5 years to learn how to read and write, and I think a lot of these techno literacy may require deliberate practice, where you are actually having to try something and fail and learn how to do it better. And there's nothing to say that this stuff is just going to come to us by osmosis. So I think while you have to have a childlike appreciation, I think there's also some elementary school work needed.
Yeah, that's actually even more challenging in this technological world, because it really kind of encourages dilettantism. There's so many things. There's 500 channels, and there's 500 million channels. There's so many things, and I think most of us are like the dog and Up, squirrel. We like, it's one thing after another, and we're just bombarded.
Yeah.
How does one pick that skill to learn, and what should you learn?
Yeah. So that brings us a little bit more into one of the other verbs or gerunds, is filtering. So I think what we're learning to do is that we cannot assess, even evaluate, let alone consume all the choices and options that we have. I mean, there are like 60
incredible
million new songs on the planet every year. There's just some phenomenal. So you couldn't even read the list of those that you have. And so we have to use tools and others, some systems, to even be able to navigate our way through all these choices, which are exploding in exponential rate. And in 30 years from now, 50 years, the numbers will just be completely overwhelming. So we need technological help, and we have to rely on these things in an intelligent way, and we have to train ourselves how to rely on that to get through all these choices. And there's ways in which we can feel paralyzed, and ways in which we reduce the choices artificially. So like an example I like to suggest is the default in most software applications is a really crude device that manages all these choices. So you have choices that you don't know about until you're ready to want them. So you can pick up the menu defaults to certain choices, and then when you are ready to have those choices, they're confronted to you by opening up the default menu, and then you can change them. So you have choices that you're not being overwhelmed with all the time. So that's a very simple, crude, elementary example of how we use technology to manage these choices. We're going to use AI and bots and personal recommendation engines and all these other things to try and help us manage and match our unique personal interests or needs to this exploding world. And this itself will be a new skill, a techno literacy of how to handle, manage, amplify, to extract the best, to optimize all these choices.
Our Campbell 3 in our chat room said it very nicely. He said, in other words, we're increasingly unable to know about everything, so we need to get comfortable with not knowing things and make conscious decisions where we invest our mental energy.
Yeah, and that's
it's okay to accept the defaults initially.
Exactly. And that's another chapter of the book, which is questioning, which is this idea that, in fact, we're entering in a world where answers are free and ubiquitous, and they're really good answers. So machines, if you want an answer, you ask a machine. That's Google and the AIs, and more and more of the questions that they can answer are more and more sophisticated, and the answers becoming more and more reliable. So us giving answers, humans giving answers, is not a significant factor. what we're headed to is where every time we have an answer, we do think of two more questions. So every answer gives us two more questions. So in a certain sense, the questions, what we don't know, is expanding faster than what we learn. That expanding ignorance is sort of the territory that we're headed into. And in that territory, questions become more valuable than answers. So right now, schools kind of teach you how to answer questions, but I think in the future, they're going to teach us how to ask questions.
Right. I often talk about the commoditization of facts.
Right.
That what used to have huge value, which is knowing something, is now is almost as valueless as a bit, because you can find out anything anytime in seconds.
Right. And so the valuable thing becomes, what you want to learn how to do is how to ask really good questions. That's what science is about. That's what innovation is about, is asking the right good question.
You say a very reassuring thing right at the beginning here, which is not the beginning because that's the end, but in Becoming, referring to Alvin Toffler's anxiety about the future. Hey, good news! We're at the beginning, and in fact, it's just starting now, so it's not too late.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've both been around a while, and you might have remembered the time, at least I do, when anybody in the world could secure a domain name for free.
Oh, you tell a great story about this in the book.
Right, and you can get anyone you wanted, and there it was. It was like, and then now you think, well, all of them have been taken. It's all the good ideas, all the easy internet ideas have been occupied. What's left?
All the good inventions have been invented.
Happened already.
There's nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go, right.
Don't feel that way either, right? We get stymied by creatively, we get stymied by so many roadblocks, and that's one too, right? Oh, I can't think of anything new. Oh, there's too much stuff.
It's all too hard now.
It's all too hard now. I'm too late.
Right. But in fact, if you go 30 years and we were to send someone back from 30 years to now, they would tell us that the internet, you didn't even have the internet in 2016.
Yeah.
That was not the real thing. That was just the prototype. That was just the thing before the real thing. And all this other stuff, the AI and the VR was all before you. It was wide open. And actually this year, right now, this moment was actually the best moment in history to start something.
Right.
And I wish that I had lived back then.
Right. You said the graybeards of 2050 will look at you and go, man, it must have been amazing back then in 2016.
Right. I wish I could have been around there and started with stuff.
We got to always remember that. And yet, at the same time, it's so important to look around with wonder, and we live in wondrous times, and a time of miracles.
I think the Louis K. thing of we should be amazed when we get on an airplane instead of complaining about the fact
everything is amazing and nobody's happy.
Right. No, but I mean, if you think about it, if you think about what we have or what you're carrying in your pocket. That you can kind of get in a car and air-conditioned comfort drive across the country and your kids were watching cartoons. I mean, it's like
what?
There were kings would have gone to war for that, and their own lives were nowhere near as comfortable as ours. And so we live in a miraculous time when we have this superpower to call up maps of any city in the world, the stock quotes, so the temperature, the history of this right here. I mean, we have it instantly, and this phenomenal cornucopia of information and views of the world is almost angel-like in its capacity. I mean, through the Twitter, you can kind of hear the murmurings of the entire planet. That is an amazing, miraculous power that we just don't appreciate.
We're talking with Kevin Kelly, his new book, The Inevitable, Understanding the 12 Technological Forces That Will Shape Our Future. We'll have more of those. Before the show, we were talking about a guy named, was it Thomas Thwaite?
Yeah.
Yeah, who wanted to create a toaster from scratch, a toaster like the $29 toaster that you buy on the at the store, but from scratch, like starting with the iron ore and the copper ore
And the plastic.
and the what did he start with, oil to make the plastic, and how hard it was and how expensive it was. What did you say, about $500,000?
Yeah, I think he even calculated his time and all the resources and the times of everyone else that he went into it. It was like $500,000.
And you can buy one for $29, and it works better, by the way. It looks a lot. It doesn't. The one he made kind of melted.
Right. So we're beyond. We're now living in a world where we're codependent on our technology, and not only that, but it's a codependency where it's beyond. Almost anything we use is beyond our own capabilities to make it ourselves, and so that system I call the technium of all these things connected together, and that technium has its own behavior. It has its own agenda in a certain sense. Yeah. And our kind of job is to see what that agenda is.
Hey, we'll be right back with Kevin in just a bit and talk more about his new book about artificial intelligence and real intelligence. And that's Kevin Kelly in a nutshell. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Corning. You know Corning. I don't have to tell you about Corning. They make Gorilla Glass. They make glassware. Corning's been in the glass business for more than 100 years. They also make fiber optics, and really, that's the big growth industry in glass. Glass cables that can carry huge amounts of data at very high speeds over long distances. Corning, when we put our fiber SAN in, our storage area network, our giant hard drive, and it has those special bright orange cables because you have to be very careful with them. You can't step on them. You can't bend them. And I remember Russell saying, "No, don't step on those, whatever you do." Man, Corning stepped up. They know glass. They now make cables. You can step on it. You can tie them in a knot. You can tie them in a bow. You can crimp them. These cables, I don't know what they're doing, but they are so great. And now this isn't just for a big network or a telecom. You can use these Corning optical cables for your USB 3.0 and your Thunderbolt connections. And here's why you might want to. Not only are they lighter, much lighter than regular cables, and much thinner. You see how thin they are. They're very flexible, very robust, and they can go an incredibly long way. Cable runs of 60 meters for Thunderbolt. That's 200 feet. 50 meters or 165 feet for USB 3. Why would you want to use this? Well, Universal Audio is an example. They use Corning optical cables to achieve acoustic isolation in their studio. They're testing new equipment. They got to make sure the studio is absolutely dead quiet. Many broadcasters, recording studios do the same thing. They can put they make Thunderbolt audio devices, right? So they can put the hard drives, they can put the noisemakers literally out of the room, 60 meters away. So it's dead silent when they're testing their audio gear. Universal Audio does it. I do it. You could do it too. I got my great Drobo, but it's noisy, right? It's got a lot of drives in it. How many drives? 5, 6 drives in that thing? Yeah, I use my my Thunderbolt optical cable, and I just connect it. Now, what's cool about this is the cables are glass, but as you probably know, USB 3 and Thunderbolt those are copper connectors. They're expecting copper cables. So what Corning's done, besides innovating on the glass, they make these little transceivers. These just tiny little things take the signal coming from the copper on the port and convert it to light. So they take the electrical signal and they convert it to light in this little thing, send it all the way down up to 60 meters to the other end, and then at the other end, they convert the light back into electrical signals that the port expects. That is cool. These are amazing cables. I want you to take a look at Corning's optical cables, longer, thinner, lighter, and stronger. If you go to corning.com/twit, we're going to save you up to $130 on Thunderbolt optical cables. Now, this is only through July 31st or while supplies last, whichever comes first. So don't wait. Go to Corning, corning.com/twit, and save on these unbeatable Thunderbolt cables. They also have USB 3.0. They call them their USB 3.0 optical cables. Optical cables by Corning. They are amazing. Talk about innovation. And we thank Corning so much for their support, making triangulation possible. Now back to Kevin Kelly while I wrap my cables up.
Triangulation, Leo Laporte, glad you're here. I'm sure if you've been watching, you're glad you're here too. If you're just joining us, our guest is Kevin Kelly. He's the author of a new book called The Inevitable. We're recording this on June 1st. The book comes out June 7th. By the time you see this, you should be able to get it everywhere. Is there going to be an audio version of this too, Kevin?
It is. Actually, there will be an audio version at the same time.
Yeah.
I was told that the narrator is an actor in the there's a TV series that
they got a superstar. They do, the Audible's been doing this lately.
Superstar, yeah. So if it was a superstar, I remember his name, but
he's probably a geek superstar. Let me see. I'm gonna check because Audible already has it for pre-order. George Newbern.
Yeah, George Newbern.
Okay.
Who was in, I think, Father of the Bride movie. And is starring in a TV series right now. It's
nice when they get somebody who can really read.
Right, exactly. I'm a big consumer of audio books, and I have learned always to trust the professionals.
Oh yeah. So get it however you like it, Kindle audiobook or paper books. There are some paper books still out there, like Wink Books.
Still out there, yeah.
They're out there.
Actually, as you can see, I have
I'm so jealous.
Two-story library of paper books.
I've always wanted that. Oh man.
I'm a big believer in paper stuff.
Physical media, but you can't move. You can never leave.
It's a problem. I'll have to bury me in my books.
You can't carry your house on your back. And that's actually one of the neat things about digital. I mean, for all its evanescence and, kind of the issues of DRM and inheritance and so forth, it's kind of cool that you can put everything in that two-story library on a thumb drive.
Yeah, it is amazing. I did a calculation of actually like how much storage you would need to store just a single copy of, like, say, every bit of music. You could do all the music in the entire world that's ever been recorded, and you could fit it on, I think, 3 terabytes.
That sounds right.
Yeah, 3 terabytes. Yeah. And so the library, the attempt to actually take the library and reduce it down with compression into hard disks it would fit into your house.
Sure.
It would fit into your house.
You can buy for $129 now a 5 terabyte hard drive large enough to store the entire Library of Congress.
Yeah.
This big.
Yeah,
and you know what? I remember when reading Neuromancer and the idea of having a laptop that had all the information in the world on it seems science fiction. You have that now.
Right. And what are you going to do with it?
That's a big question. What are you going to do with it? So let's pick one here. Cognifying, flowing, screening. I don't know what any of these would mean. What's cognifying?
Cognifying is a term to mean make something smarter. Which is
that AI?
It's basically AI. Making things smarter. That's the verb. We're going to cognify things. So I like to think of AI as more like electricity. It's sort of it's a commodity that comes over the grid that you purchase like electricity. And so electricity, when it was first invented and utilized, was revolutionary, and that's the source, the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution. We took things that humans or animals were doing, and we made artificial power.
Right.
And we sent it over the grid. And there were actually, by the way, there were VPs of electricity at companies because it was so complicated. And
I'm the vice president of electricity.
Exactly. And you needed specialists to deal with it. And that's where we are with AI now, but we won't be.
Right.
And there were all kinds of things. A farmer would take a hand pump and say, hey, I got a great idea. I'm going to electrify it, make an electric pump. He didn't have to make the electricity. He just bought the electricity from the grid. It was a commodity. And so you can electrify your factory. So we're now going to take all the things that we electrified and we're going to cognify them. We're going to add AI. And this is industrial.
God.
commodity. You're going to buy it over the cloud. And by the way, right now, today, this minute, you can buy AI from Google. It's 6 cents for 100 hits.
Is that TensorFlow or?
Yeah, and so it's the perception stuff, image recognition, natural language recognition. So Google is right now selling AI on the cloud.
Cognition.
Right? And so this stuff that we buy is going to do the same thing, whereas you have 250 horses under your hood in your car. That's basically what you're buying, 250 horses, the equivalent. We're going to have 250 minds.
Oh, my God.
Working on whatever it is that you want to work on, behind the scenes or in front, and that power can be applied to anything. So the formula for the next 10,000 startups is take something and sprinkle the AI on it. Add the AI. Take X, add AI.
Oh, my God.
Okay?
I want to start now. I'm going to jump up and do it.
That's right, because the graybeards in 30 years will say, why, you was wide open.
You were looking at that pump. Why didn't you put some AI in there?
Make a smart pump out.
So you talk about different kinds of minds, which I find fascinating. Kevin, of course, the guy who created the term hive mind,
right?
Which we all are now part of. I think you were prescient. This was pre-Twitter.
Right. Yeah, I'm a pre-Twitter kind of guy.
Pre-Twitter? Wasn't Twitter yesterday? I think it just started yesterday, I remember.
It's only probably what Twitter is probably 3,000 days old.
Yeah, well, it's a little older than that, but it's 10 years old now.
That's 3,000 days.
3,000 days. Yeah, 3,650 days. Nothing.
I mean, by the way, the web is only 9,000 days old. All this stuff.
We're just getting started.
All this stuff is just 9,000 days.
But AI is transformational more than even electricity. And electricity is like fire.
Right.
AI is like fire times 1,000.
AI is like language.
Yeah. Language is probably a better analog.
Right. So there was a singularity when language came along because it's impossible for anybody before language to imagine what happened after language. And I think AI is going to be very similar. And it's going to become ubiquitous and cheap and a commodity. And the second thing about that to remember about AI is that most of the minds that we're going to make is, first of all, there are going to be a variety of them. I mean,
we always think of HAL 9000. We always think of the human mind.
Right. And we have this wrong conception that intelligence is sort of a continuous single dimension. Like, you have the rat intelligence, and then there's chimp, and then there's kind of a stupid human, and then there's the average human, and then there's a genius like Einstein, and then there's a super AI. Like, it's one long thing, but it's not. It's a spectrum. It's a bundle. It's a symphony of lots of different notes. Each of those a different kind of thinking. So your calculator is smarter than you are in arithmetic. And that kind of calculating intelligence is one part of our collective or our own individual minds. This is an aggregation of different kinds of thinking, different notes. And animals have some of the same instruments that we have. In some cases, they even exceed ours, like, say, spatial recognition. And then we're going to make AIs that will have engineered to be specialized in other ways. And the whole purpose of the AIs is to make thinking that's not human-like. The reason why we want the AIs to drive our cars, like a Google car, is because they aren't driving like a human. They aren't thinking like us. They aren't distracted. They're conscious-free. And so we're going to make many species of minds that think different. And that's the value in this global economy, is to be connected and think different. So we were going to have some problems that we can't solve with our own minds, and then we'll make these other kind of minds, like to help us figure out quantum gravity or dark energy or something. We may require other kinds of thinking. And we're not going to try to make human-like minds because they're so easy to make right now. We want to make something that's inhuman or non-human, something that's different. Think of these as artificial aliens. And we're going to use those artificial alien minds to help us drive our cars, figure out what you like to read next, optimize propellers in a helicopter, all these things that are going to be possible with cheap synthetic learning, cheap synthetic smartness.
We have talked to people on this show about AI as our last invention, our final invention. I think that's Elon Musk's. You quote Elon
No,
Musk,
that's
Stephen Hawking.
Mark Ford's or something. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second.
You're not afraid of it?
I'm not afraid of it at all. I think that's a cheap Hollywood trope. It's very cinematic. It's like the lone villain in The Liar who has all these technological things that work.
Yeah.
It's complete fiction. And I think it's a possible scenario, but it's, of all the scenarios, it's the most unlikely.
Oh, I'm so relieved to hear you say that, because as you point out, it's inevitable. So if it were bad news, that would be bad news.
Well, I mean, what's inevitable is AI. I don't think it's inevitable that it be good or inherently positive. I think that is still our choice, and we will have to train them. I mean, I think right now we really will have to put our values into it. There's groups at at Google and Stanford who are working to put ethics into self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Because you have the trolley problem. If there's an accident, should the AI favor the safety of the passenger over the safety of the pedestrian? Okay, they have to go through that. They have to.
But
work.
are we smart enough to invent I mean, we can invent it. Are we smart enough to invent it right?
Well, this is the thing. I believe that just like our children make us better people, that us having to teach ethics to the robots, we'll realize our own ethics are terrible. We're very inconsistent. We're lousy. And they will actually make us better because we will have to work through this ourselves. And then they will, in some senses, be superior in many ways to us, and that we will be learning from them.
Okay. So many opportunities, but also I think equal number of challenges.
Absolute. There are a lot of challenges. But by the way, we've never invented anything that hasn't been weaponized.
That's right.
And AI will be weaponized. In fact, just last week I got a visit from Department of Defense.
What?
Some guys who
Mr. Kelly, we have heard that you were an expert.
Exactly. They're thinking about AI, but they're really trying to do it well and say, how is this going to apply to the military? What should we think about? What questions should we have? Because whatever U.S. does, there's Russia and China. They are working on these things at the same time. So there is plenty of stuff to worry about in making AI robots, AI soldiers, robocops, robo-soldiers. So what are we going to do about those?
Yeah.
And then I'm also myself a little worried about whether we would make AIs and robots, whether we would take the stance of having them as our slaves. Whether or not they are our slaves is just whether we would have that stance, which I think is a kind of a corrosive stance.
Is it, even if they're not humans, if it's just a machine?
That's the question.
It's a very interesting question, because of course, through the ages, even recently in our own history, slaves have been a great economic advantage.
Right. So exactly. So if we have all these things, and let's say that, as you may have heard that even last week, they're now programming pain into robots because it's a very useful thing.
Yeah.
So if they actually have pain and can feel pain and suffer, then, and if they have any kind of a self-awareness, at what point would we be uncomfortable in treating them as, as our slaves? And I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But I'm just saying that there are a lot of challenges ahead of us, that they're inevitable, but I'm not a utopian. I'm a protopian. Protopian means that rather than there being a destiny where everything's perfect, protopian means I believe that tomorrow will be a little tiny bit better than today.
Yeah.
So this incremental movement of 2%, every year we create about 2% more than we destroy. So we're destroying 49% of the world is crap, 49% is terrible, is awful. But 51% is good, so that 2% is tiny. So as an optimist, I'm an optimist by a small margin.
So okay to take a step back as long as you're taking 2 steps forward.
Right.
Or even 1.2 steps forward.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think all you need is 2% compounded annually, by the way, is huge.
Huge. So Mark Andreessen has, said, hey, we don't have to worry about losing jobs because technology is going to make everything free, so you won't need to work. And so not having a job or being replaced by a robot's not going to be such a bad thing because, well, everything else, is going to get cheaper too.
Isn't that the long dream? Haven't we been working towards that isn't that what we want? Is
it?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I think our highest achievement and value in life is working at something, right? And
I think I object to the word work. I think it's to be making things.
Okay. Creating,
and I don't think there's any end to that. But I think the idea of reporting into somewhere where you don't want to be. I mean, look, most of the jobs that the politicians are fighting over are jobs that we will be embarrassed that humans did in 100 years. Like cashiers,
right?
Truck drivers.
Yeah, but there are a lot of cashiers and truck drivers who are very worried about a future without.
Well, they should be, because those are any kind of a job that can be described in terms of productivity or efficiency is a job that would go to the bots.
Right.
Okay, so productivity is for robots.
Right.
What the kind of tasks that humans should be doing are ones that involved inefficiency. So that's like science. Science is inherently inefficient. I mean, you're going to make mistakes and have failures. If you're not having failures, you're not learning anything. So science is inherently inefficient. Innovation is inherently tremendously inefficient. Art is inefficient. Human experiences are inefficient, unproductive. And so those are the kinds of things that we're going to gravitate to as for our meaning, for our creation, for our making, is things that aren't inherently measured by efficiency and productivity. Those are the things, whether they're white-collar jobs, knowledge jobs, or physical jobs, those go to the bots. Productivity is for robots.
Yeah.
Humans are for inefficiency.
Oh, I love that. We're talking to Kevin Kelly. It's funny because we talk to so many smart people, but there are really only a handful of people who are actually smart, who actually seem to understand and can explain to us what's really happening. And Kevin is one of them, and he's been doing it for a long time as executive editor and founding editor of Wired magazine. His books, Out of Control, New Rules for the New Economy, Cool Tools, What Technology Wants, and the latest is The Inevitable. 12 trends that are coming in the next few decades and how they're going to shape our future. We're recording this June 1st. The book is out June 7th. By the time you see this, and I'm not sure when exactly, but by the time you see this, the book will be on shelves in bookstores. What? And also on your Kindle or your Audible book or wherever you get your books. And I just always get such pleasure out of talking to you, Kevin, because you seem to take what looks to me, and I'm sure most people, as a chaotic system, and you can tease the threads out of it in such a way that we kind of understand what's happening. And I think that's really what this book is all about, is to tease those 12 threads out of what is truly, it seems to me, to be very chaotic and unpredictable. So thank you for doing that, applying your great mind to this.
Yeah, I really am privileged to have the opportunity to spend some time thinking about that. And it's almost a compulsion in some senses. So,
good.
To be honest.
Good. Thank goodness. Right. Kevin, the number 2 Kelly on Twitter, Kelly. You still prefer Google Plus to?
No, I have to say that I think some of the momentum of Google Plus has really disappeared.
What perfect place for somebody like you, for somebody who's interested, as I am as well, in more conversation. And
it was very the answers and the dialogue on Google Plus was really superlative, but that mojo has departed for other fields. I'm not really sure where.
We've seen it before. I mean, remember how great The Well was? God, it was amazing.
Exactly. Right. It
was amazing, and it happens to all of these.
Pass. So
we just haven't found the next field.
Yeah, tell me where you're hanging out, and I'll try it out.
You tell me. I haven't found one yet.
Yeah. I mean, Twitter has its uses, but it is an abbreviated form. This haiku, world. So
You're still
I
using
like the long form. I like the long form.
You're still using the web quite well, and you can't seem to stop yourself from creating websites.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm old school.
But I like that. And there's a permanence to it, so you can always say, well, I want to see cool tools. Well, good.
Yeah.
You just go to, cool tools, and there it is. It all starts at Kevin's website, which is kk.org, kk.org/cool tools. And I'm glad, thrilled, you're still publishing cool tools.
Yeah, and I have a website called True Films, which I review the best documentaries in the world.
Nice.
And that's been going on for a while. I have a whole bunch I need to kind of catch up on. I haven't posted the latest ones, but we're in a renaissance of documentaries, as people realize. With the advent of Netflix and Hulu and others, and even YouTube, you can see most documentaries that used to have to go to a theater. But
how do you have time to watch movies?
Well, this because I don't watch anything else.
Right.
I watch documentaries. This is my this is how I like to spend my time.
A documentary is a good way to learn. I mean, this tea documentary, for instance.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Just a great way to
go deep. Is an amazing thing I had no idea about, and there, you can
70 minutes and you're a tea expert. There you go. Boom.
There you go.
Just like that.
Right. So yeah, the blog I think is for long form, and while the rest of the world wants to go short, I want to zig and continue trying to take the long-term view.
Your most recent post on the Technium, Why I Don't Worry About a Super AI, is kind of a response to Jaron Lanier, who was an early VR pioneer who more recently has gotten terrified by where technology is taking us.
Right. So he and Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and a few others have, the past year or so, come out and say, hey, it's the most existential threat that we have on this planet right now is something we're making called AI. And I think that's a possible future, but I think it's an implausible future.
Yeah. Because, well, you point out it's not improving exponentially. Ray Kurzweil, said we're at the hockey stick and the singularity is a decade or two off because, boom.
We don't have a good definition of intelligence. We don't know enough about what it is.
We don't know how it works. Yeah.
We don't have what's smarter, a parrot or a dog?
Right.
What's what's smarter, you or your calculator? Well, your calculator is smarter than you are in arithmetic. Are you smarter than Google in terms of recall? No. So intelligence is actually this whole aggregation of different kinds of thinking.
Yeah, I like that list of different kinds of minds. It's kind of in the book in Cognifying of just the different. They're all kinds. There's a very slow mind that's mostly storage and memory.
Right. And we're going to make
that's useful.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's networks of minds that are either aware that they're a networks of minds that
the hive mind is unaware, which I find interesting.
Right. Yeah. So that's going to be the great frontier right now, is inventing all the different species of thinking that, and this is wide open. If you want to make your mark on history, go and do that right now. Invent all the different varieties of thinking, artificial thinking, alien thinking, and we have each kind will be useful for something else. So one of our other chores that we want done, and we're just at the beginning of even understanding what intelligence means, because we don't really know.
Right.
We have a sample set of one.
And we don't understand that one all that well either.
No. And actually this is another benefit of AI, is only through AI that we're going to actually understand our own.
I do love that. I think you're right. I think by trying to figure out the ethics, the understanding of it is really a process of self-exploration that I think is very valuable.
So I like to say that we need AI to help tell us who we are. We need these other alien intelligences to help us understand what humans are.
You're truly an optimist.
I am.
Why do you end with the beginning?
Because I think we're moving into a new stage, a new kind of like a phase of civilization, which is this planetary superorganism thing that's just beginning right now. We're just now starting to wire it together. So we're taking 7 billion humans and we're wiring us so that we're connected together in real time. And then we're taking the additional 7 quadrillion machines that we've made, and AI as well, and connecting those together into us. And this network of all these human minds and all these artificial minds connected together, working on things at the same time, will produce this sort of super organism around the planet that has never existed before. And a lot of the things that we find most miraculous today, like Wikipedia, Facebook, YouTube, all come out of the fact that we can do things in a collaborative way at a scale in real time that was never before we could not even think about. And that new power of having this sort of planetary scale organization, this network of minds and people and artificial minds and machines, this is going to surprise us to no end with both its capabilities, with the ways it can be abused, with its emergent phenomena, many times at a level that we may not even kind of be able to understand. And I think that we best think about this as a new thing, a beginning of a new thing that I call Holos, for the word from whole, because it entails all humans, all machines, and even nature to some extent. That unity of all these things together is the beginning of something. That's where we're headed.
So exciting.
That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is not a metaphor. This is not poetry.
No.
I
can see it.
We can actually specify. I try to say, well, here's how big it is. Here's how fast. It's running at 1 gigahertz. It has 600 exabytes of memory. We can specify this almost like it was a naturalist specimen, and that is the thing. And if we were to visit other planets around the world that had advanced technology, they would have their version of this Holos. And this is an exciting time because we're alive at the moment when this is being born.
Yeah. You and I have maybe 30, we're about the same age, 30 years left. Do you think we'll see I think we'll see this in our lifetime?
I think we'll see the beginnings,
of the seeds, yeah.
We'll see enough of it that people will recognize and acknowledge the fact that it is there, because some of the things that have happened in the past couple of years, like the flash crash on Wall Street, which was this global phenomena where the stock market did something worldwide, globally, and nobody has any idea why. Well, that
was an artificial intelligence, really, wasn't it?
Well, that was the phenomenon of this Holos. That was just a little burp happening in the Holos. So we'll see more of that. There'll be more and more of these kinds of instances where this whole system as a whole does something because it is a whole system, and we'll begin to have to pay attention to that and to try to understand that and to basically acknowledge the fact that we are now making this super organism that works at the planetary scale, and will need, I believe, some kind of governance, some kind of planetary governance to work with it.
One hopes we get that.
We will get it if we demand it.
Right.
If we make it.
Right.
This is a case where we have to invent the future. We're going to get the things that we create.
Yeah. We're talking with Kevin Kelly, former editor of Bell Helicopter Employee Newsletter.
in Tehran, Iran.
In Tehran, Iran. I did not know that you started as a photographer.
Yes.
Do you still take pictures?
I am. I'm working on this huge book. I just came back from Oman and Kerala, India. I'm just maniacally working on this book, which is recording the disappearing traditions in Asia.
Cool.
And between Turkey and Japan, and I've been working on it for years and years and years, and it's this project that I feel very strongly about, because in 30 years a lot of the stuff will be gone. I'm not nostalgic about it. I'm not trying to, lives improve, things change, it's going to go, but I just want to have a document. I want to have it recorded and shown and convey some of the excitement in life that I feel for it. So I am working on that book. It's called, I think we're going to, well, I did one book called Amazing Asia Grace. And I'm not sure what this one will be called. Maybe The Colors of Asia, Amazing Asia. I'm not sure.
That will give me an excuse to bring you back.
Yeah.
I feel privileged.
Pretty pictures.
I feel privileged to live in the same age cohort as you. We are lucky to have you. And people, you got to read the book. It's just out, The Inevitable. Here it comes. It'd be nice to know a little ahead of time. Maybe you will be making the next great innovation based on these great 12 technological forces that are going to shape our lives over the next few decades. Kevin Kelly, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
It's always such a great fun and privilege.
Oh, I'm glad you feel that way, because I feel that way too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I just love it.
Yeah.
You're such a great host. I love your personality and your interest and intelligence in these issues. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We do Triangulation every Monday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We'd love it if you watch live. Your input is so valuable, but if you can't, on-demand audio and video of everything we do, because we know you got a busy life and you should be able to listen or watch whenever you darn well please. We make that available on our website, twit.tv, for this show, twit.tv/TRI. And of course, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast application on any of the devices, the many devices you may have, including, of course, the Twit apps created by our wonderful fans. Thank you, on every platform out there, including, I think, the Cody app has now been updated too. Thank you. Please join us each week for Triangulation. See you next time. Bye-bye.